Welcome back to the Lumbertron Podcast. I'm your host, Tyler Woods. Well, today, a crowd favorite returns. Derektendersong Washington is back for a part 2. If you haven't heard part 1 yet, you might not know just how wonderful and loving Derek is. And he's brought that loving, tender vulnerability back to share his dream of a more intimate and connected world. Spoiler alert, the answer was inside of us all along. So take a breath, ground yourself, and open your ears and your heart for our talk.
Derek, welcome back. Welcome back.
So good to be here, Tyler, and just to be in the space of emergent expectancy in the direction where the fragrance is coming from for the more beautiful world that we know not only is possible, it is, and it's inviting us to it, and aiming and moving in that direction, being in that direction.
Like a cartoon pie, just the smell, the scent, the aroma, just taking us in that direction.
Yes.
Yeah. So this is a part 2. This is a follow-up. This is an expansion, whatever you want to call it. But I always love to open with the line, just a chance to drop in on, like, right now, in this moment. Who are you? Who are you showing up as?
Who am I? I am a listening storyteller who has been hearing stories on the wind and on Star Song, and from singing eyes and voices of others in these last hours that has stoked my heart with hope and made some of the challenges that are before me as I consider taking the steps in this adventure that I'm embarking on seem so manageable and so worth the incline that they might be that I take. And who am I? I'm ready. I say that with humility, not with arrogance, but just in that sense of I'm saying yes. I'm saying fuck yes. Yes.
So as you take the first steps onto this path up the mountain, what awaits you? What are you working towards? What's at the pinnacle of this adventure?
This stepping into more of my heart's confident leadership with others, singing a song that others might sing with me, either melody or harmony or layers or rounds, echoes or adumbrations, sending them from another timeline to here, to build a sacred, spiritual, sensual, loving, tending, honoring, aware, conscious community where it has deep spiritual overtones, undertones, non-religious, deeply spiritual. What does that look like to engage with grace? And what does that look like to engage a deep call forward while being in the midst of feet that sometimes seem stuck in the mud and it's hard to move. Being in a situation in a world right now that feels like, is there any hope for such a thing? And is there anything beyond just talking about it? And is there anything in spiritual community beyond the anemia or I would say arrogance of or the privilege or entitlement that we may have felt from the way communities have been handed down in history. And, I come from the church, and there's all kinds of spiritual communities in that vein. What's different than the questions I'm asking is, I think there's a lot of difference. And what are the differences to what my heart is calling for and hearing on that star song I was mentioning? That's what I'm aiming to develop. And I probably haven't said very much here, except that, it's in this vein of something's, as Mary Poppins would say, the east wind is blowing, and there's apple pie, strawberry rhubarb pie, on the wind, blueberry pie, whatever your fancy is.
Yeah. So you have a dream. You have a dream to build something more than the communities that were handed down with the problems, the ego, the intensely human stuckness. What are you drawing from? Is this something completely new? Are you bringing things from the past? Like, how can we even begin to construct this? What are the building materials?
I think there is something from our past, and it might be generationally in the past, where we knew how to take care of one another and to not live so isolated lives, and so lives so bent on self and the concept of the individual, but lives that are interwoven, and as Thich Nhat Hanh says, this interbeingness. And so many of the indigenous peoples that talk about our relatedness to each other and to all things, to all of creation. We know these things. So much energy has been spent in our lives, in our resources, in our pocketbooks, and the way we've structured ourselves to live isolated lives and set apart lives, where so much of our core is often hidden from each other, both our light and our shadow, our longing, our sadness, our eros, our passion, our lovemaking, our squeals of delight in blissful pleasure, our weeping tears and agony. So often we're removed from that these days. We're so sterile. Yet there's a way to be that we used to, as Francis Weller talks about, we used to wake up in these tribes and clans of living together, and you'd wake up and there'd be 20, 30, 40 eyes staring back at you, in whatever configuration we were in. And we knew we weren't alone, and we tended each other. We stoked each other's passion. We got each other's grit, and we made love to each other. And it wasn't secret, and it wasn't shameful. And we carried each other. These are just some aspects of what's a little bit different, and we're not really doing that a lot today.
Yeah, to be in a space of just like community where it's like it's shared, it's seen, everyone is seen on a deep level. It's like everyone is part of something greater than oneself. The intense individualism is not a thing. Yeah.
For me, I got into the church because I wanted to be a pastor, not because I wanted to be a preacher, though I enjoy talking and communicating with people. I wanted to be a pastor because I love that tending aspect of engaging people's lives and weaving ceremony together with initiation and the things that I consider holy, things that we are called, that people feel called to and that they devote their lives to. And seeing how patterns weave together when people do that, and you bring the beauty ache and the beauty joy of life into that mix, tending lives that way. I got into the church when there were set aside roles for that, and maybe it was already way too late at that point. It was that we paid somebody to take care of us in that way, or tend holy spaces, and became a professional kind of thing. Yet there's a way to tend and be engaged with. There are caregivers and tenders. I love that word. Shepherd is one word, but I love the word tender even more than pastor or whatever.
Yeah.
It has
Say more about that. What does that mean, to tend? To tend to people, to lives, to relations.
To attend and initially be present, that we are present with each other. We listen. I don't know the roots of the word, but it has a place of being sensitive to as well. Sometimes we use the word, you hear tender as like, ooh, I'm sensitive or oversensitive. I've been hurt. Don't touch me. But also that if we take that further, it's like an empathy. I know what that feels like. I've allowed myself, my heart to be open. And when I see you and your life and your experience, I'm able to let it impact me. And for me, the tenders of each other care about what happens to each other. That's a good test, I think, to find out if we care, if it matters to us what's happening to other people. Charles Eisenstein has a great thought on compassion. He says the core question of compassion is somebody asking and having the wherewithal to say, the capacity, what is it like to be you? Mm-hmm. What is it like to be you? If we have lives that can ask that kind of question, for me, that means we've stewarded ourselves well enough, or we're being stewarded well enough. We're tending ourselves, or we're being tended, that we have some capacities. We're not living to the edge so full of ourselves and our own drama stories and trauma stories that we have no capacity for anybody else.
Yeah. So it's like the community that you would have would be driven by compassion, to live from a place where everyone is tending to themselves and others as I don't know, just a reciprocal, like a dynamo of just this like family.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And compassion, and I would say one of the reasons I think the patriarchal religions have become less relevant in the world. I could say more about the negative sides of that, but I'll just leave it at that. They've been a bird that's flown with just one wing. And that's so often they will fly on the wing of compassion. And so even the things that we're talking about here, but I think there's another wing to fly on. This is an image that I use, is compersion, where we are excited. And there's an empathy, but it's a different kind of empathy for someone's joy, not just their pain and their difficulty. Compassion is that side that says, how much of me am I willing to give towards you that can help ease your suffering, that can say, I'm willing to suffer for you, with you. So it's an empathy, maybe sympathy in there too. It's at least being aware of that. Compersion says, can I see your joy and get excited for it and not be jealous of it? It could cause me to long for it too, and stir this, ooh, yeah, I like that. Oh, me too. It can do that. We don't have to go into jealousy, envy, that kind of thing, but in a sense that would make it kind of a grasping kind of thing. But the joy that says, I am so glad that you're having that. And if that makes you alive, I'm going to let it also make me alive, that you're coming alive. And that it's like fragrance, like that apple pie. We're all smelling it going, oh my God, that's delightful. It's not like, oh, I just want that fragrance for myself. And I mean, of course, that can go all the way down into the relational thing of being with a love. Then if you're in this space where you, someone's needs are met by somebody else, whether that's on the intimate level, sensually, whether that's relationally or whatever. Compersion has been used, and it's probably very well known in that arena that if a one lover says, yeah, I'm open, if there's somebody else that is meeting your needs, I'm grateful that your needs are being met. And I'm not jealous of that. I'm having joy that it's actually bringing you alive. And that is missing to me in this world, in the religious world, in the sacred world. We've been taught so much in patriarchy that no, that kind of, I don't know why in the context that's non-sexual, why we don't use compersion that much. But in the sexual context, there's just no room for that in the patriarchal religions. The morality that was birthed out of that says, no way. No, you've got to have just one person. That person kind of, you make commitments and they kind of, in some cases, it's they own you and you own them. And that's extreme cases, but that is happening all over the world, and it's very limiting. I see a world where we really grow in compersion. If we grew in compersion the way we are in compassion right now, it would be such a different world. Such a different world.
Like a cornerstone, a touchstone of celebration, to celebrate needs being met, to celebrate accomplishment, growth, all those things.
Compassion, I mean, yes, different than compassion in a way. It fosters gratitude in a different way. There's a gratitude of a passive gratitude and an active gratitude. Certainly when one's needs are being met, there's an active gratitude. A passive gratitude is like, whoa, if we're in relationship and I'm the only one meeting your needs, then that all falls on me. If somebody else is, if we're in relationship and there's other people involved in the relationship and your needs are being met by someone else, I can rejoice that your needs are being met and it doesn't all fall on me, but there's a pollination that's happening in a different way. There's a sweet gratitude there.
Yeah. Well, let's talk more about this journey and begin to realize this dream. Like, where does one begin? Where do you start taking this first step?
My first steps were, I want to build community that's ethical, and it cares for people, and it cares for us on all levels, and not constrained by the repressed morality, specifically repressed sexuality, that has been handed down through the religious morality that's predominant in our culture. I knew that there was a greater, something greater than what was being told. And I was waking up realizing I was culpable for saying a message that I didn't believe in any longer when I was in the priest garb and preaching in a church and leading ceremony. I was listening to couples, I was watching people live, and I would just hear their broken hearts. And I'm like, well, we're doing all the right things. And somehow I started waking up and started following my heart. And I had a dear friend tell me of his kids some of them have gotten married. And one of them said that they had friends come over. The kids were sharing with the parents, their adult kids. We're having another couple come over and we're engaging intimately with them. My friend was telling me this and he was completely appalled. My heart started stirring. And, my juices got going too, because I was just living in my own repressed state. But there was this deeper place in me of, why not? If this is what's bringing them life and joy, why not? And so how does one get started? Listening to our hearts of saying, well, what if there's another way? I think in the previous podcast that we did, the interview we did, I talked a good bit about that, moving in that journey to here. For me now, I'm starting to talk about what I found. I've moved into a sex positive culture where I think one of the greatest parts of our being is our intimate being. It speaks, so much can be addressed in this space of intimacy together. Our deep soul comes to play, comes to bear, comes to offer, comes to serve, with its needs when we come together. You know, my favorite poem, I may have shared this with you last time, is that Hafiz poem. It's called With That Moon Language. And it speaks to this for me. Admit something to me. He wrote this in the 1300s in a predominantly Muslim world. He was a mystic, Hafiz. Admit something to me. Everyone you see, you say to them, love me. Love me. But you don't say it out loud. Shh. Because they'll call the guards. But still, this great pull in us to connect. Why not be the one who lives with a full moon in each eye and who says with that sweet moon language what every other eye in this world is dying to hear? Why not be the one who lives with a full moon in each eye? Full moon in the third eye, full moon in the heart. It says what every other eye in this world is dying to hear. And yes, I love you. You are love. I am love. And addressing this on the levels of intimate connection. I don't know. I think just moving from saying, wait a minute, maybe everything we've been taught needs to be re-examined. And then moving into a sex positive culture for me, where I had the freedom to bring my sacredness and my devoted life into an arena that wasn't seen as sacred and devoted. And it wasn't called holy. And the things that I was longing for wasn't called holy. I wanted to make love with my brothers as well as my sisters. I wanted to make love in groups. I wanted to be together in sensual, sacred, mutual enjoyment. And I started realizing this was coming from a place of beauty within me, not because I simply wanted my needs met and to have orgasms just for the orgasmic sake and the bliss of that pleasure, as lovely as that is. There was a deeper calling in me of the virtue of these things. And in so doing, the experiences I've had in these 4 years have been so lovely. They've been very sacred for me. I have that's important for me. And that's the kind of community I want to build. And I found virtue in places that I never knew virtue was in. I was actually told it wasn't in. And there's been deep healing in my soul that has allowed for an integration that has changed me, of bringing my masculine and my feminine, my light masculine, my dark masculine, my light feminine, my dark feminine, whatever the complexities of those are. And I'm still learning what that is, bringing that to bear in my attractions, in my expression, has changed my life. And finding others to engage in that way has brought healing in ways that I didn't know was possible. I actually only dreamed of. And now I'm discovering, I think this is what we're missing. And can we do this in ways that people feel safe and dignified and honored and worthy? And with these things in place, this is the kind of community that I want to build, that I am building, that I invite people to.
Yeah. It's like using your heart as a North Star. It's like the more that your heart has opened, against the previous like norms, and this is wrong, this can't be. And every time I hear you receive that message, just like, well, my heart's twinkle says something different. And following that twinkle to bring you to a new community, this sex positive life, and being like, okay, these are some of the things that make my soul sing. We can get the whole world singing a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I speak of the sexuality a lot here. It's really not the biggest thing of what I'm trying to build.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm wanting to do is the whole idea of eros, eros, eros,
Mm-hmm.
redeem it in the ways that it has been exiled into only the sexual, but bring intimacy and regenerative intimacy at that back into the daily nutritional diet of our lives, that we find so easily and readily and generously, and cultivating relationships where we're just living in love with life to the degree that life is loving being lived in us as we're loving living it. And we can feel that energetically. Spirit feels that from us, to us, with us. The earth feels that when we're in love with it, when we're in love with each other, when we're in love with ourselves. We radiate that from here and bring it to the world. When this is what changes the world. And that will include, to me, an expanded way that we engage each other physically, sensually, sexually, not from that repressed, oppressed, aggressed mode that we've been handed and taught as to what will be a good moral citizen, to stay within this system and conform to these rules, but in a way that I believe can open us up to the more availability of life that's coming in, more petals on our flower to open. And we then make the choice to live in love with life. We choose to love, to make the we choose to live, making the choice to be in love with each other, making love to each other, whether we're doing that physical or not, whether we're making love to the earth physically or not. We can act as if we are. And so for me, the other part to this is because we've lived in a repressed culture for so long, and this need and desire for this intimate expression and exchange together is so powerful that the whole, I'm using extreme terms here, and I'm kind of being aware of that, but the whole development of the porn industry and the way that it has come about has developed. And to me, it's kind of a deep dive of, there are aspects of the porn world that I have been so fantastic for me, because I've been educated, I've learned, I've seen things that I didn't know were possible. And it's used as a sex education tool for many people. At the same time, we all know the liabilities of this, of exploitation and places of deep wounding and trauma. And it's gone into a dark place in many aspects. Redeeming that taking that as a clue that our hearts are hungry for intimate exchange together. We're made for it. I think I lost a little bit of my train of thought, but I'll pause it there. I've been saying a lot. You can go for it.
With eros, redeeming eros as like the passion of life, the passion of everything. You talked about making love to the world, just being in that like a sacred reciprocity with all things. What does it look like to add eros back into one's daily diet? What is it? What are some practices? What are some ways of being in that state? What might that even look like?
For me, I don't do it every morning now, but I'm working on more and more. It's saying good morning to source and to other, just the otherness of the dark, of just saying good morning and offering my heart again in that. Maybe touching on hopefulness. Not every day I wake with hope, but some days I do. I mean, peeing on a tree on the ground, taking my shoes off, walking on the ground, touching leaves and just saying thank you. If we're going to eat meat, for example, I've got some dear friends who their passion is to, how do we love and tend and care for the animals that will become our food? And how do we take their lives in ways that is a much more honoring, with gratitude? How do we make time for each other? This is how I become more in love with life. I'll pick my guitar up here and I'll just sing, even if nobody's here. These days, it's nobody's here, and just sing to the stars and look even through the clouds that are overcast today. Just say hi. Sunlight's blocking out all the clouds, so Big Brother's shining right now, but there's a million cousins out there that I think every bit of their light that's heading this way is filled with codes of virtue and love and beneficence.
It's really just opening one's heart to what's already there, to what's always been provided, with that cornerstone of compassion, gratitude, compersion. We're already in the community. We're already here.
Choosing to believe that. I know everybody doesn't believe that, but I think it's a choice that we can choose this. And I invite us to choose this. I live with this unapologetic invitation to choose things that make us more fully alive, which leads to us being more fully alove, and which leads to us then having the courage to reveal our truest self to the world. And even probably more, as equally important or more, is risking that, whether we hit the mark or not, risking more aliveness. And I was just talking with a friend about some experiences they had at a festival recently, and a number of people came up to him to have sexual exchange with him. And he was like, Derek, I just wasn't into it. And it was a different energy. And it was like, there's another way to be that makes the exchange within this arena sacred. It's tapping into, I don't know that there's a day that goes by that I don't think about sexual exchange, that I don't think my dark masculine, my feminine, I don't not think about some kind of sensual sexual engagement every day. And I know I'm not alone in that with the people that I talk with. If we could tap into that energy, making a choice to believe these things about the world, that it's good and is holy, can be. It's how we tend it. Like you and I, how we tend each other. That he said, what would we were talking, I don't know if he asked me or what I said, but if you're talking that you only want to have a sacred exchange with this person, it could be sexual or, not, but they're wanting to have sex. So just say, hey, I'm game to consider going into that space, but I really need it to have some kind of sacred focus, that I believe it's a spiritual engagement can happen here. And I want that to be a part of this, and maybe even a bit of ritual and ceremony. And we can sit and talk about and set the space for what's going to happen, and how this might make me more alive, and how it might make you more alive, because we do this together. If you're willing to do that, I'm willing to have, a deeper conversation and maybe engage this with you. And I said, you'll probably weed out 75% of everybody who comes to you like that. And then of those people saying, they say, yeah, I'd be willing to talk about that. Then to say, would you be willing to be concerned about my aliveness and my dignity and not just my pleasure? I mean, I can see it in your eyes, maybe, you know, that we're going to look out for each other's pleasure. But can you be concerned about some more deeper things? And maybe we could even open some portals that we know nothing about, you know, because of our coming together, sharing this energy. Would you be willing to talk and think about that? And so of the 30% that would say yes to the first one, then you've got another just like very thin slice. And he's like, yes, you know, because this is kind of where he's going with his sexuality. He's like 28, or he's 30, maybe around 30. He's like, yeah. And then what about, so I'm jumping here just a little bit, but in this exchange, what if we then used, maybe you don't say this to everybody who comes to you, but this piece of sacred exchange of, I love this idea of sex being sacred exchange, of what if we used arousal to explore grief, praise, gratitude? What if we used arousal to explore our deepest heart's desires? I was making love with a friend not long ago, and this was what was happening in our lovemaking. And we started being able to dance with this energy. And this was a beautiful sister. And I was just tending to her pleasure, and a beautiful yoni kiss, and listening to her and pausing, tending, choosing to believe that something much more was happening than just moving toward an orgasmic release. But asked her, what are you sad about right now? Is anything up? What are your griefs right now? And then listening and pausing in the midst of arousal. It can shift everything. Maybe you would never go to an orgasm. You know, your mind gets going, etc. Tears, you know. And then we move to, what are you grateful for? So being aroused, letting that stimulate. So moving from this core into the heart, letting that touch the mind. And then the third eye of, what do you most want in this world? What are your heart's deepest desires? And then listening to her in her arousal, in the moaning, in the beauty. Holy shit and shinola, as we say in the South. Holy fuck, literally, figuratively. Sacred exchange. And this is but one aspect of what some people talk about in sex magic and tantra. But if we offered this to the world and we started talking in this direction, in this neighborhood, I think this is where we start redeeming eros. And yeah.
Yeah. Damn. Using the physicality of arousal as kind of like a emotional physical processing, going from like body to mind, emotion, just like going through those three in the heightened state.
And through the heart.
The heart.
Boom.
Yeah.
Through the heart. And using it for healing. Was with some brothers recently, where bringing this healing gift to the world of singing to both brothers and sisters in their sensuality, singing to my brothers' lingams and their balls, singing to my sister's yoni, singing healing with intention. There may be pleasure, there is, and for me it's very intimate to be in that space with somebody, but to be with a partner, to be with a friend who we're exchanging these things with, singing to their deep core. This is, for me, singing and music is a powerful tool and gift within that I bring to the world, and I want to do more and more. But this particular way of singing with intention, using the sonic waves for the codes that might come, just like light can bring codes, sound can bring codes. So I would, encourage any of us that we're in these intimate settings, think of this. Bring your partner to a place of saying, can I just sing love into you?
Mm-hmm.
Can I just sing love into you?
Just feel the vibrations directly.
Feel it. Feel it. And then ask, what are you feeling? With this one beautiful brother, and just adoring his cock, and just seeing the beauty of this man before me in his life and what he's bringing to the world. And so our sensual sexual engagement was like, this is contributing to what he's already bringing, and maybe healing stories. So beautiful. And these are exchanges and encounters that I won't forget. As I think I shared with you, and I don't know if I shared with you on the previous podcast, but with one love in the not too distant past, it just had a dealing with cancer in that area and their ovaries, and I sang into their womb and just transmuted in that quantum alchemical way of calling forth stem cells and transmuting the ovarian cancer cells into stem cells. And we did this practice in very intimate, sensual ways. And the next day, when they went in for the surgeries, there was no cancer. There's absolutely no cancer. The sky's the limit as to what we can bring when we choose to believe it. And this is where all this led just a little while ago when you were talking about, that we choose to be in love with this world. What are the practices we do to redeem eros? We choose to engage each other. We choose to risk these things. We believe beauty happens, that we are vessels of beauty making. We are vessels of love making. And the best use of that term of love making to me is this beauty making and generativity, bringing something into the world that didn't exist before.
Tending to a beautiful world, making beauty, seeing the beauty that's already made.
And if I'm going to be a part of a spiritual community, I'm not going to hide from these things. My spiritual community isn't going to be a sex community that I'm aware of, but it's going to be one that we're not shying away from talking about the nitty gritty. We're not going to shy away from talking about life and death, coming and going, and the seasons and the cycles. Grief and praise play a big part of what I believe we're called to do and be. And not shying away from the harder things, not shying away from dealing with our traumas and dealing with the places that need to be healed in us, being trauma aware, not shying away from encouraging each other to steward our lives so that we have capacity enough to be present for one another, to attend to, not shying away from owning what we desire and naming it. Not shying away from building community that can handle our shadow when it comes up. And we can own that too, and we don't have to exile parts of us. We can bring them back in and ask for help with that. Have a humility towards that, and not shying away from being in community that both holds our tears as well as our body's nectar from pleasure, the nectar of our sorrow, and the nectar of our joy.
So as you begin to adventure outwards physically into the world to build this, to find this, to, I don't know, encourage others, how will you know things have shifted? Things have begun to change?
I think discovering more and more people who resonate with the message of it and the invitation of just having the courage to say, yeah, this is what my heart wants too. And I'm ready to spend my resources and make decisions in my life that will lead me into that place of having more of this in my life.
Found others whose heart compasses are pointing in the same direction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm looking for those too, that this resonates with in ways that people want to join and build community together. And there are people gifted in many areas and arenas of community building that I know that get stirred by conversations like this. And for me, I want to be a part of that building too. My personal journey is going to continue with, I have plans afoot to be in a Celtic community for part of the summer over in England, Wales, and to be on the land of my heritage. I shared with you before that I'm a Washington of that line, and I come from I guess, I don't know how long it's been called the British Isles, but the original peoples, there are at least peoples that go back further than what I know, are the Celtic spirituality, the Druids, the people who loved the earth, the pagans, those who tended the sacred mother. And I'm going to be on some land there. And I have a month plan to be in community, talking about relationships and people and shadow. And I hope to make some connections in a broader way to see how folks there are engaging maybe some of these very same things I'm talking about. And when that's over, I will go to New Zealand to the High Den Temple for their temple immersion to talk about sacred, sensual spirituality and how do we redeem eros in these kinds of ways that I'm talking about, probably even different than I'm talking about. I'm bringing my own piece to this. And a number of folks engaged there have been in the International School of Temple Arts, and to glean from what they've learned and for them to share. And I hope to be pollinated there for a number of weeks in the fall. And
immersion.
Yeah.
Immersion in the schools of life, the schools of others who are walking this path, and just like really experiential learning ahead. Yeah.
And I think just being bold to talk about it, I carry gifts of communication with friends and this unafraid of the deep water in people's lives. I think that's what drew me into the priesthood too, is I figured, I'll get to go into the deep water with people. And I was really let down with that because so often people just wanted you to see the fluff, and it really wasn't that as engaging as I wanted it or needed it to be, to see the life-giving community that I wanted to see in the world. But there's a place in me that wants to communicate and take risks. And part of this has been owning my own desires. I desire this kind of intimacy, not only in the world, but in my own life. And to me, it's a sign that energy is moving in a powerful, sacred way, and we can express our devotion in very different ways. So I'm talking about it and talking about it with you, and and our conversations is so lovely, and to hear what's happening in your life and what's opening and expanding is so encouraging to me. And I mean, you can speak to that too if you want to, but I just want you to know that encourages me.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you for being here, for being a mirror for my own, growth and appreciation of the world around me, of source, of waking up in the morning connected to something more than this human world that has no priorities for celebration, compassion, compersion. It's like I'm not alone in building this. It's like I too am building this community, and I didn't realize. I was like, oh, wait a minute, I don't know. There's blueprints. There's like this way we can go together. And, oh, okay, got it. And this is just part of the connection and community that makes it happen. So, yeah. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Coming back and sharing everything. Who knows? There may be a part 3 after all this adventure.
You know, this idea about beauty that we talked about before. To me, all of this is all about beauty becoming beauty, and giving birth to more beauty. And this whole thing about sexuality and this way we polarize things is, for me, if I can bring beauty into the mix of anything that I'm involved with, this makes it great for me. It's like when I'm cooking, I try to put curry in everything. It's like it's my spice, my go-to. That, and then the bachelor spice of garlic salt, But I try to put curry. I'll sneak it into Jello. It's like
so you're like I don't know, a traveling chef just with the spice of beauty, and you're just like sprinkling that on the entire world wherever you go. Just
Absolutely.
Bringing beauty with you.
Bringing beauty with me. And I've told you maybe in the last podcast, but this idea of beauty sexuality, this aesthetic sexuality, asexuality, this being in love with beauty and following beauty in our intimacy. I want to encourage and give an unapologetic invitation to every one of us, especially my brothers, because I think there's beautiful love and intimacy to be had in this world, with brothers loving brothers and women loving women too, sisters loving sisters, and then all of us loving each other, even in groups together. But just to say, follow what your heart finds beautiful, and don't say something's not beautiful because somebody else said something wasn't beautiful, because that's what you were handed. But follow what your heart says is beautiful. Follow beauty in your intimacy. Follow beauty to your bedrooms or the grass outside. Follow that. Beauty's becoming in this world. This is going to raise the frequency. We bring love to that. It's going to raise the frequency. Yeah, lovely.
Well, may we all keep following those breadcrumbs wherever they take us, wherever they lead. Oh. Well, thank you so much for picking this back up continually. It's like a loop of vortex. We just kind of like reach in, pull ourselves into it, and beauty back into this space.
At some point, I would love to share a poem or two that addresses some of these very things in my kind of language, the sacred language that I use because of my upbringing and the devoted life I've had within the church, and now bringing that and sprinkling that into that kind of language into these very topics. But I'm thinking that might be fun to share too. And yeah, I'd love to do that with you at some point.
You could close with a poem. It could be the finale if you got one that you really are called to bring up. That would be.
I have one that I think I shared it with you. The Dear Brother, Dream With Me poem. And this is a poem of permission and blessing for men to love men. Actually, for all of us to love as Mary Oliver says, the warm animal of our body. Let the warm animal of our body love what it loves. So this is just my blessing coming from the state of my position within the church, and being a former priest who was consecrated as a bishop in secret because of my ideas and then kicked out. Because of those ideas, I bring this as a blessing and permission. Dear brother, dream with me. Take a moment to set the space. Take a moment to breathe. Take a moment to feel. I make the invitation to return to our natal purity and innocence, to a place not bombarded with forces bent on control and power, but on tenderness and vulnerability and strength, where we can taste a wine that was made before Adam. Return with me to a place of sensual non-scarcity, where we love each other as brothers, the way we're invited to, whether platonically or sexually. Before they told us we shouldn't and couldn't, before they told us we were aberrant and we didn't love only women, before they made women objects for us to fight over for dominance and wealth, before they pitted us against each other in their repressive morality, dictating how our needs were met, before they reduced sex to a mere act of self-serving release, and before they attached our belonging in this world to how well we conform to their rigid moral code, before their system of patriarchal control reduced sexual engagement to an act of desperation, like Bilbo reaching for the ring one last time, every time. What they've done is a crime against our essence, brothers, and now we're waking into a new lucid dream. Dream with me of a time before, when we honored women and each other as gifts to be cherished and believed in, where we honored the consequence of such intimate engagement as a gift from the sacred universe, where tenderness was spoken and grace cultivated and harvested like strawberries in an endless summer. Dream with me of an embrace, brothers, where you are held and seen by a brother who cares, who desires your full living in this world as your truest self, more fully alive each day, waking into the new sunrise with hope and strength, for you know you belong and you are welcomed because of the warmth and hospitality of a brother's strong arms, arms that have shown you the meaning of acceptance, arms that have met you in your strength and seen the hunger in your eyes to dance the dance of life and fecundity, arms that have moved with your body to find the energies of embodied pleasure, courage, and discernment in the world, of impassioned tenderness, stewardship, and commitment, who see your wholeness of being as joyfully needed and passionately desired in this world, arms that help you test your mettle of grace and empathy as you offer your virtue to receptive hearts in this world. Oh, brother, dream with me. What is life if it is not risk? Will we continue to look at distant lands with mere telescopes, wondering about their shores and their rivers and their mountains? Will we only lament what was taken from us? Will we only sit and lick our wounds in silence, in desperate desire, rehearsing our lack in the same rutted story of victimhood? We are more than our lack and our longing. We are more than an erection needing to be assuaged. We are embodied sacraments of grace, glorious creatures with infinite capacity to experience what comes to us with a discerning and learning consciousness that becomes aware of itself, becoming aware of itself. And in so doing, we realize the company of saints in which we exist, a communion of subjects, not a collection of objects. We see the traumatized hearts and lives around us. We understand the violence of toxic masculinity. We understand that we are each masculine and feminine, and we have courage to honor and woo each within each other. And we know the need to protect the dehumanized souls around us, guarding the womb of their sacred yes, by honoring their sacred no. These have been brutalized by the patriarchal forces that have brutalized us. And we hear the loud and silent cries of broken hearts, desperately wishing there was more, refusing to believe that there isn't, yet who feel they have no capacity or blessing to reach for what they desire, lying both in resigned desperation and desperate resignation. Someone must reach. Will you reach with me? Will you dream with me? Dear brother, dream with me. This reaching is a part of our divine agency. As we heal, as we dream the dream of being dreamed, as we hear the song being sung by our divine sacred mother dreaming, our nightmares turn to dreams of hope and yearning, of believing there's a virtue beyond what we've known, and that we are not complete until we reach for it. Oh, brother, the glory of this life is not in the attainment of our desire. It's not even in the orgasmic bliss of passionate moments. The glory of this life is in the reaching for it and witnessing each other in the glorious reach. We're never guaranteed the destination, but we are guaranteed a life in which to reach and to long and to savor the process. Dream with me of such a harvest. How long will we deny the satiation of our heart's longing in the deepest places, listening to spells woven by those who are exploiting us day after day, pillaging the treasure of our being, our very life energy of co-creating the world anew? Brother, our seed is potent, not only for co-generating physical life, but seeding dreams beyond what we've known, for believing there's beauty to meet the longing of our souls. There's a procreation that goes beyond the physical, dear brother, touching the womb of generativity within each life. And our touch and connection in these places inseminates dreams that make this glorious universe gasp. And we are invited to risk believing this, to cultivate it, to steward it, to protect it, to listen to the voice of the divine feminine in every reach, to honor her and to tend her dreaming as we live and tend the dream of being dreamed. How long will we choose not to risk for fear of not getting it right? How long will we listen to the stories of those who've never known the new world of our dreams, who tell us there is no such thing, that repressed scarcity is all there is or was or ever will be? No, brother, there's more. There is passion and gifting and tenderness and reciprocity in our hands, on our fingertips, on our lips, and on our tongues. There is an invitation to a greater glory and sacredness than we've ever known in 3,000 years, maybe 5, when dominance and force were not the way. Let's dream, dear brother. Let's risk. Let's honor one another as virtuous men in our attentiveness to what might be. Let's trust our ability to discuss and to debrief, to listen and to hold, to align and to resonate, to relearn and to repattern. And as we do this together, as we grow in our capacity to listen, to discern, and to protect, this is the garden from which we bring our love and sensuality into the broader world in ways that have been forgotten and believed in, except in our dreams. And we can share our tempered love with those in feminine form. There we can invite into a sacred communion where tenderness is spoken and glory is caressed. And invitation is made into the place of listening dreams, where fruit is enabled with a life of its own, not predicted or controlled. For we will have demonstrated our understanding of desire's consequence in the world, tending a beauty and stewarding a virtue that just may make our sacred mother gasp in delight, and that might allow her dreaming to dream things beyond we've ever known, and maybe just her too. This is the most worthy goal. This, brother, is the destination to write home about, our natal home, where we left so many winters ago and have walked alone in the cold, and whose warm hearth beckons our return. Dream with me, O precious brother. Dream with me.
Thank you for reaching with me.
Mm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. As we reach, dear brother, at whatever capacity we can, wherever our hearts allow us, we do risk. And again, what is this life if it's not risk? And when I ended our last interview, it was that Hafiz quote of, he said, "One regret, dear world, I'm determined not to have when I'm lying on my deathbed is that I did not kiss you enough." This reaching in whatever ways we reach, whether it's in sensuality, like the ways we've been talking, or whether it's showing radical grace and love and kindness in the world, or tending land, and whatever it is we're called to, creating music, performing surgery. It's this way that we live and bring love into the world, and beauty becomes, and this is our kiss. This is our wet lips. Doing this together, this is the communities that we're invited to build and bring and to live in, where we're connected and integrating. Wet-lipped integrating.
Thank you. Thank you, Derektendersong, Washington.
Thank you, brother. Oh, I'm so stirred by your openness too. I send you with a blessing, and may your courage blossom. May it be so real in you, and the song and fragrance of your life be so sweet within yourself that it just opens like a flower, and your fragrance just blooms all around you. And may whatever cosmic butterflies, bees, and hummingbirds come into your sphere, the hearts that come to you, and may you all produce beautiful fruit in this world. And I look forward to the gardens that you tend. And I look forward to the meals that you'll prepare from it.
With a full moon in each eye, Derektendersong shares his truth. You can reach out to Derek at derektendersong@gmail.com. If you'd like to send me a question or comment, I can be reached at lumbertronic@gmail.com. Until next time, keep sharing your stories.